Alright everybody, hello, and welcome back. Those of you just clicking on this for the first time, just so you know, this is a follow-up to a previous video that I did. Please check that out. The link will be over at the top right now, so make sure to take a look at it. I'm gonna go ahead and get started with, a somewhat recent development. Good news, we've got a new champion, Moderator, a Japanese runner slash YouTuber, posted a 1 hour and 22-minute run with light bowgun. And I went ahead and I made sure to do a bunch more analysis for today, so assuming you like data, oh boy, do I have a treat for you. So those of you who didn't know, Moderator actually is a fairly decently sized YouTube channel. They did a lot of Iceborne content, and it looks like they're just starting to get warmed up in terms of putting a lot of Rise content on there. I think they've done a very good job though with their RTA. Currently it's unlisted for some reason. I don't know why it's not public yet, but you can watch it. It is linked off of the speedrun.com leaderboard there, and it is worth watching because it's actually a really great run. So it is 7 minutes faster or so compared to Gemini's run. It does some really interesting things that I didn't know or even think about. At one point during the run, they throw a large barrel bomb at Bizarrios while he's digging, and he gets stunned? I don't know if that was just damage, or if that's an actual thing, but that is absolutely something that I would like to try out at some point and kind of see what happens. Also, just this pretty cool thing with Magdemaldo. Magdemaldo is in a wirebug state, and he doesn't have his wirebug stuff up, so he actually puts 2 bombs on him. He just jumps in the air and throws a bomb at him. I mean, obviously that's something you can do, but I thought it was a kind of a cool thing. I don't know that I would have thought about this. So it's a really fun run to watch, and it shows a lot of ingenuity and creativity. So I went through and I did the same analysis that I did before. So I'm going to show up on screen just really quickly how I do these timings again. For those of you who don't know, just give you context. I'm looking only at the section of the run where they're using this ore light bowgun with the silencer. I start my timing at the very first frame when they shoot their first shot, and then I end when the last shot leaves the chamber. I'm running my analysis at 30 frames per second. So the project is at 30 frames per second, and we are set to absolute frames. So looking at it, fight by fight, it's exactly what you would expect. I mean, as he's fighting the different monsters, he'll sometimes get down to an 84. Sometimes it'll just go as high as a 90 or a 93. At one point in the volcano, and I believe there's something weird going on in the volcano. I don't really know what happens. His lowest possible frame is 81. Outside of the volcano, it's 83, which, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, the fastest I got in the training room was 84, but I never claimed to be world-class top-tier light bowgun player, but obviously this one is. And so when we take a look at their average timing over all of these volleys, they're going at about 88 frames, which I think makes sense. I mean, that's okay. And, when you look at a histogram of this, everything more or less falls in line, between 85 and 89. Now, there's some outliers that go a little bit below 85. And then obviously, as you're aiming or if you're not mashing quickly enough, there are some that get a little bit over 89, but it's kind of what you would expect to see from a normal human using a normal controller. So I can pretty confidently say on my own end, Japan currently has the crown, and I'm very happy to see that they have the overall fastest run for light bowgun, as well as the overall fastest run total. So good for you guys. Please keep it up. The competition is always great. Okay, so now on to the bigger news, I guess we should say, is I also went back and did some further analysis of Gemini. So before I even start showing any of the footage on his end, I need to show some footage on my end first. And so this is only possible because of a YouTube commenter who let me know of a feature that I didn't even know that exists on the Hori Turbo controller. So while we were doing Turbo before, it was not really yet Turbo time. With the turbo button and the right analog stick, you're able to set it to go to a faster pulling rate. So I actually went to a website and I tested this out. By default, it will push a button around 12 and a half times a second. On this faster setting, it goes to 17 and a half times a second, if not more. And then when we take that and we actually go into the training hall, we can see now consistently we're able to get our shot timings down to 81. 81 on the nose, start to finish. And I think, I mean, again, like I'll try and show some data up on screen here. I think even to the casual eye, you can kind of look at that and be like, that doesn't look right. Why is that going so fast? Why is that going so fast compared to a normal bowgun? I mean, there's 3 different states the button can be in, right? It could be at a frame and be unpressed. It could already be pressed, or then it could be from a frame that wasn't pressed and is now pressed. A half A press? I don't know. Lots of guys out there spent a lot of time discussing presses, unpresses, and half presses. Check that out. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on it, but I do know this will press it 17 and a half, if not more times a second. And doing that with this light bowgun gives us an average shot time of 81 frames. So with that in mind, I went back and I did the best I could to capture everything from Royal Ludroth on in Gemini's fight. And ooh boy. I'll show some of the data up on screen now alongside the various fights. But on Royal Ludroth alone, there are 3 instances of 81 frame times as well as an 82. Somnikamp is almost entirely 81. I mean, there's one instance of 83, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 instances of it. I don't know what's going on. Tobi Kadachi isn't quite as bad. There's only 2 instances of 82. Something weird happens when he's looking at the Tobi Kadachi tail. He's either not firing or I don't know what's going on, but he slows down there. Bizarius is when things get really weird. There are a bunch of 81s, but remember I said before, like sometimes there are dropped frames. He actually gets it as low as 80, which I think is just a dropped frame. I think that would have normally been 81, but I can't say for certain. I don't necessarily have the same sort of graphing capabilities that they would have at Digital Foundry, but almost entirely 80s or 81s or 82s. Rathian follows basic same pattern. There was 187, but otherwise there's 81, 82, 82, 82. Volvidon, again, kind of what you would expect. 80, 80, I'm assuming a dropped frame. There were these 2 instances where he was aiming at Volvidon's head, was a 93, one was a 99. Then there was an 82 and an 81. And then Magnum Aldo almost across the board, 81, 81, 80, 81, 81, 81, 81. So when you take an average, and I'm going to include those outliers of like the 93 and the 99 when he was kind of aiming at Volvidon's head, he had an average shot time of 82.6. Now, I would like to mention, myself personally in the training hall, I could not get a shot timing faster than an 84. If we look at Mituron and just discard what was going on in the volcano, the fastest time he ever got, ever, in his entire run, and he's the world record holder, was an 83. And yet somehow on Gemini's run, their average is lower than Mituron's best. Which, if you were a God player and you were very, very good at mashing the button, I wouldn't be surprised to see you getting it down to an 81 or even an 80 with a Volvidon. I mean, you know, these things can happen. I mean, if you're good enough at mashing a button, that will happen somewhat. But what would have to happen is you would literally have to line up everything for those states of buttons, and that it would have to be pressed and unpressed and not held at the exact right moment, at the exact same time, for the exact volley. And so I know there's been a lot of discussion, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are trying to prove, first of all, whether or not it's possible. And then second of all, I mean, I don't know what else. Can it even be done? Can this even be done on a controller? There are things you can do. You can remap your buttons on the Switch. So you can take your right shoulder button and then bind it to the A button if you want to do that. And you can try to rock your finger back and over it. But I mean, guys, the simplest answer is just a turbo controller. And I could reproduce it reliably. Here, you can see it literally on screen. So as far as the proof and the data and the verification, I've shown it all on screen. It's just so flagrant and almost disrespectful to the entire community to think that this wouldn't have been noticed. Which takes us a little bit on to the next point. And this is actually, I would say, this is the touchiest point of everything here. And I think, you know, you all made it very clear. We all love Extros. And I think I know why. I think Extros is a really nice person. I mean, they have to be. I mean, not only do you all love them, but the way it went down is Gemini had this run. It was cheated, obviously, flagrantly, and he asked to a group in a Discord, hey, does anyone want to become a moderator and approve my run? You know, Extros, who is a really good guy, who is a moderator in Gemini's stream, and was there to watch the speedrun, said, sure, I saw it. You're my friend. I watched it. Where do I sign up to become a moderator to approve your run? I mean, it's just like, it's scummy how Extros got played. It is so bad. And so for their sake, just to remove any of a shadow of a doubt, and I will say in my original analysis, I wasn't convinced that Extros had anything going on. My initial conclusion was that you can't prove anything because there were some weird timings, and there's still a couple weird timings, but nothing outside of just random chance and possibility. Other than, obviously, he approved Gemini's run, and then Gemini approved his run, and he had number one with light bowgun, and he's normally a longsword player. But he actually had really good light bowgun play. I mean, this was a run that was done, and it was done without tools, so no traps and no bombs, so just you and the monster. And there's some weird stuff that goes on a little bit in this Royal Ludroth fight. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Now, something to point out is, for whatever reason, Extros has like this very odd frame rate on his videos. It's not normal. So normal you would expect would be something that would be 29.97 or 30 FPS or 60 FPS, or what is it, 59.97, somewhere around there. Streams at 29.35 seconds. So I have to assume that this is going to mess up the analysis a little bit. So in as much as we're giving him a grain of salt already, give him a little extra one. He's a good guy. Okay. He doesn't normally play light bowgun, so don't bully him. His Royal Ludroth fight, at first I'm like, oh no, that doesn't look good. But again, like, Royal Ludroth is in the flooded forest, a area that is well known for dropping frames. Drops frames all the time. Like, it's easily noticeable. And so there were a couple points in the analysis where it dropped to 79, and I think I saw an 82, but that's really not proof of anything. That's just proof that that section of the game isn't optimized. And then outside of that, you see what you'd normally expect. 86, 89, 95, 79, or sorry, not 79, 86. I mean, these are all, you know, within the normal range of what you would expect from somebody normally using the light bowgun. And then by the time we get to Beishatin, you know, again, I see at the end here, there's a couple 82s, but, you know, guy's got a weird frame rate. Everything else looks pretty normal. 90, 88, 85, 91, 87, 97. Not normal, but not really proof either. Somnicanth, only thing a little weird here is there's like these 3 series of 88s and there's 3 series of 92s, but you know, that happens. I mean, maybe Extros is a musician. I don't know. Maybe he's got a really good internal metronome. He might. Rathian, nothing to speak of. Everything looks pretty normal there. Toby's a pretty long hunt for him. And we get a lot of data here, but again, it's right around where you'd expect, 86, 88, 89. Bazarios, Same thing. Even if we saw some really low numbers here, it's in the volcano. Like there's an 82, but that's like well within expectation because the volcano drops frames. So it's really not that weird. Volvidon, same deal. I see an 83, whatever. No big deal. And then Magnum Aldo, again, everything's right within range. And so when you take everything together and you average it, he's right at an 88.58. And remember, when we take a look at Meteoron, he was at an 88.234. So maybe just a little bit better. But I think, you know, when you're looking for a sort of metric that would appear to be by both current world record holders in their respective categories, right? So Meteoron being number 1 in the world for any percent and Xros X being number 1 in the world for no tools. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that tracks, you know, 88 is perfectly within the realm of human input. You know, if I saw somebody that was at an 87 or an 86 or hell, I mean, there was a while in the training room, you know, I was able to hit a series of 84s. I mean, I think even that is remotely possible. And so I think, you know, the real takeaway from this, and I think, you know, if there's a lesson to be learned here is, you know, look, speedrun moderators are not gods. They're volunteers. They don't get paid. God knows it's a lot more work than it needs to be. And so anything that they do should be taken with gratitude, because if they didn't do it, then the run wouldn't get verified, and then we wouldn't have any idea what runs were being verified and which ones weren't. However, that being said, you know, if you got a close personal relationship with somebody else, you know, you're friends, you talk often, you're both moderators in each other's channels. Somebody says, hey man, I just got a world record. Do you want to sign up to become a moderator and then verify it? You know, and that's a little suspicious, you know, I mean, that's not something you should sign up for right away. Especially if someone's going to be able to tie it to you as being like, you know, did you have any personal feelings that may come in the way? You know, I feel like this has ended with a bow on it. Just to be fair, this is still just my analysis. The administrators and whatnot over at speedrun.com are, of course, allowed to and come up with their own independent conclusions. You know, it's entirely possible. They will find that Gemini was somehow innocent of all wrongdoing. On my end, I do want to apologize for my chat. They did apparently say some mostly memes, but they still maybe weren't nice about it. So on behalf of my chat, I always take responsibility for my community. I do apologize for that. As for everyone else who got mad at me, I would suggest that anger be redirected elsewhere. Otherwise, don't worry. I can take it. I have no lasting beef with anyone, other than people who submit runs with illegal hardware and then claim not to use it. All right, so let's put a bow on it. Until next time, everyone, I love you. I will see you next time. Good luck. Have a good hunt.